Good morning and happy July 23rd. July 23rd has always been, at least in this incarnation, has always been a special day because it is the birthday of my older brother, Mark Ernest DuQuette. And later in life, when he became an astrologer, uh, uh, he was sort of fascinated with the birthday because it's a cusp day. And depending on what hour you're born, you're either a Cancer or a Leo. And in any given year, kind of that shifts around a little bit. So he's a cusper. And he always felt a little like he wasn't sure what he was, kind of thing. He had a Leo personality, but a very Cancerian nature. And so he shared both of those things. Uh, he died a few years ago, and today would have been his 86th birthday. And there's not a day. Uh, I could say there's not an hour uh, in my life that waking hour that I don't think about him. He, as my little note says, he was the best big brother a kid could have, and so I miss him. I miss him terribly, and we had a kind of a special bonding because my mother, as much as we loved our mother, and as much as she, uh, as they say, did her best. Uh, Her mothering skills had a very long and difficult learning curve. I guess that's probably the best way we could say that. It wasn't a matter of her not loving us. She loved us. Uh, she loves us dangerously much. Okay, uh, and nobody's mother is perfect. But before I was born, he was 6 years older than I. Before I was born, she was especially uh, uh, I, abusive, I guess, just out of she just kind of wasn't ready for motherhood, kind of thing. So he was pretty much traumatized for the first 6 years of his life, and then she became pregnant with me, and it sort of knocked a few of the harder edges off of her, and things sort of calmed down. In other words, my presence in the family took a great deal of pressure off of him, and not that she was that great with me, but it gave us something to bond. We were best friends, okay, and his older school chums, they included me in a lot of their gatherings and such, and so I got a kind of a 6 year head start on the birth of rock and roll, and the changing culture of the time. He's responsible for introducing me to rock and roll and jazz, and uh, I guess you could call it pop literature uh, of the time. So and as we grew up, he moved back to California, and I followed when I graduated from high school 6 years later, and we became in our adult life, we more or less stuck together. We traveled up to Oregon together, and uh, his wife and Constance and I moved up to Oregon together in a sort of commune type. It's very interesting. But I'm going to share something I wrote uh, at the very, very beginning. It's literally the prologue to my book, My Life with the Spirits. And I've shared it with you probably multiple times over the last 4 years that we've been meeting here together every morning. And it's the prologue's called Sons of the Desert. And I believe that I shared at least part of this with you uh, uh, earlier this spring when I did my morning broadcast from Joshua Tree, California, because this is a Joshua Tree story. But because today is his birthday, I'm going to commemorate his birthday with the annual reading of Sons of the Desert. It was February 26th, 1967. I was 18 years old and my brother Mark was 24. We sat atop one of the monstrous boulders that are heaped like petrified dinosaur droppings across California's Mojave Desert and watched the moon bury itself in the western sands. 180 degrees away, in the eastern horizon, it was split in a lewd and blood-red invocation of the sun. Shortly before this celestial orgy, we shared a mystic feast of far too much LSD and vowed in deadly earnest that we would not return from the wilderness until we were holy men. Daybreak found us shish kebabbed to death, skewered through by the sun and moon's perfect opposition, flat on our backs, emitting short grunts and giggles. It would be an understatement to say that we were naive, but we were not entirely green behind the psychedelic ears. Between the two of us, we had at least 24 carefully programmed trips under our belts. In our pitiful way, we were serious seekers. We followed the setting, guide, procedures outlined by Doctors Leary and Alpert, and crammed the days and weeks between our sessions with healthy doses of Eastern mysticism and spiritual practices. We were freelance Eastern mystics. Okay. Nothing, however, could have prepared us for Judgment Tree at Joshua Tree. By mid-afternoon, we had blithely paddled our souls up the river of our genetic ancestry, stood at the very hub of eternity, and stared with wagging jaws down the orbiting spokes of all possible possibilities. It was the most deafening of unspoken truths. We would never leave the desert. Wherever we would go, whatever we would do from that point onward would take place in the desert. Our frenzied hike back to my old VW bus, yeah, it was blue too. Our frenzied hike back to my old VW bus was a stumbling ordeal of Odyssean scale, complete with horrifying labyrinths of dry washes and mini box canyons. I have to say mini box. A blinding sandstorm, yeah, and the sadistic laughter of the spirits of our own tormented childhoods. Now, this is something that's just, it's impossible to describe. The hallucinatory revisiting of our, well, just what I said, the spirits of our tormented childhood. The 2-hour drive back to Costa Mesa was uneventful, except for occasional highway encounters with desert skeletons returning home from church in their pickup trucks. Part of the revelation in the desert, and part of the what I mean by paddled our souls down our genetic history, uh, was the realization that at least part of our consciousness, each of our consciousness, was identical with those of our own great uncles uh, who died before we were born. And one of them, who I believe is me, was the private secretary to Hal Roach, the filmmaker. You know, Laurel and Hardy, Keystone Cops, that kind of thing. And it sort of explained a lot of other memories, crib memories that I had. And we didn't know anything about our brothers, our great uncles, but what little we did find out fit in with memories and things like that. So that's one of the things. That's why I like 1920s things and songs and memories and fashion even. Okay. Once home, we immediately sought dark refuge in the smoky coolness of the Buccaneer. It's a beer bar. The only bar in town that would occasionally ignore the fact that I was a minor and serve me beer. That evening, no one dared to question my age. I looked 1,000,000 years old. The beers didn't help. We were still very high. The zebra-striped walls of the little saloon dripped down to the floor like melting wax. And the pores of the bartender's nose were so big I could walk inside them. Then, from out of nowhere, I received a revelation. Not a cosmic vision about DNA or the nature of light and time, but a surprisingly normal idea. It became very clear to me that I must marry Constance, my high school sweetheart. Now, I've described my proposal to her from the payphone at that beer bar, and I've shared that many times. And I'm going to skip over that part here. But she said yes. And I said it was the stupidest thing that she'd ever done. And it was the smartest thing I ever done. Okay. But anyway. And what about the sons of the desert? Did we really become holy men? After a violent decade of political radicalism, arrests, alcohol and drug abuse, and 2 wives, Brother Mark transformed into the very model of an Eastern aesthetic. A Sant Mat devotee, a satsangi of the Radha Swami order. He practices the strict disciplines of that august sect, a combination of Hindu yoga and Sikh mysticism. He wears a huge untrimmed beard and travels each year to the Punjab region of northern India to labor and meditate at his master's ashram. Back home, he's a chemical dependence counselor whose clients worship at the altar of his wit and wisdom. He's happily married to a beautiful and saintly woman, one of the most gifted psychics in the world. Also a satsangi. Yes, I'd say Mark is a holy man. And I'm very respectful of the spiritual direction his life has taken. I have no doubts that that is his way. It certainly rescued him from an early grave, and his conversion has made Southern California a less dangerous place to live. My life, on the other hand, took a dramatically different turn. So different, in fact, that many people, perhaps even my brother, believe my chosen path to be patently evil. It's true. I've scorned and rejected the faith of my fathers. I invoke and worship strange and terrible gods. I summon devils and hold congress with angels, spirits, and demons. But does it naturally follow that these pursuits are spiritual transgressions that bar me from the fellowship of holy ones? In this little book, I search for an answer to that question. So I wish Mark was here for me to personally wish him happy birthday. I wish he was right here so I could hug him and thank him for making me who I am today. Most everybody can credit their parents for turning them into the type of person that they are at the moment, for being there when they needed them the most. And so do I, but I must add that a major player in the comedy, drama, farce of what made Babylon Babylon, I have to credit my brother, Mark Ernest DuQuette, who would have been 86 today. I'll talk to you tomorrow from the road, hopefully, between here and we'll probably be at least near Oregon tomorrow when we pull over somehow, and I'll check in with you for the next few days because I'm heading to Noticon in Portland. So until tomorrow, continue to be good to yourself, be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will.